Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is another March Mystery Madness video. In today's video, I am going to be talking about the first detective novel ever published. At least most people agree on whether or not it's the first detective novel ever published. But before we get into that, I need to give you the answer to yesterday's My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. The clue was, this book is widely considered to be the first detective novel. And the answer is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. Now I don't know if you can see that. I will open it up and see if we can get a better. Can you read that? Okay, so stay tuned for the end of this video and I will give you the next My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. So let's talk about the Moonstone, because in 1841 Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Murders in the Rue Morgue. This was a short story and it was called the first modern detective story. But in 1868 Wilkie Collins published The Moonstone, and it is widely believed to be the first detective story. Now, there's some differences, of course. The Murders in the Rue Morgue is a short story, and this is a complete novel. I find it interesting to see what people commented on about the Moonstone. T.S. Eliot said, "It is the first, the longest, and the best of modern English detective novels in a genre invented by Collins and not by Poe." Dorothy L. Sayers said, "Probably the very finest detective story ever written." G.K. Chesterton calls it probably the best detective tale in the world. So, what is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins? It is a story that takes place in an English country house. There is a large cast of suspects. There are multiple narrators. There is a detective called Sergeant Cuff. And there is not a murder, there is a theft. In this story, we have the theft of the Moonstone, which is a jewel given to Rachel Verinder on her 18th birthday. And I'm going to give you a list of the characters because that also helps us get into a little bit of the plot of this story. So Rachel Verinder, she is our heroine. She is a young woman who inherits the Moonstone on her 18th birthday. Lady Verinder is her mother, a wealthy widow. Colonel Herncastle is Lady Verinder's brother, suspected of foul deeds in India, who acquired the Moonstone unlawfully. Now, some people may think, oh, what a great gift to give to your niece on her 18th birthday. However, Colonel Herncastle had a very fractious relationship with his sister, and he gave the Moonstone to his niece not as a kind present, but as a bit of a joke, as a bit of a snuff at his sister. Gabriel Betteridge is the Verinder's head servant who loves to quote Robinson Crusoe. We'll get into that in a little bit too. He's a fantastic character. I think Gabriel Betteridge is one of my favorite characters from this book. Penelope Betteridge is his daughter, who is also a servant in the household. Rosanna Spearman is a second housemaid, once jailed for theft and suspected of stealing the diamond. Drusilla Clack is a poor cousin of Rachel's. Franklin Blake is a cousin and suitor of Rachel. He is desperately in love with her and heavily involved in the events of this story. Godfrey Ablewhite is another cousin and suitor of Rachel's. Mr. Bruff is the family solicitor. Sergeant Cuff is a famous detective with a penchant for roses. Dr. Candy is a family doctor who loses the ability to speak coherently after recovering from a fever, and this becomes important later in the plot of the story. Ezra Jennings is the doctor's unpopular assistant who suffers from an uncurable illness and uses opium to manage the pain. Mr. Mirthwaite is an adventurer who has traveled frequently to India. And the Indian jugglers, 3 disguised Hindu Brahmins who are determined to recover the diamond. So one interesting thing about the way that the Moonstone was written is the multiple narrators. It opens with a prologue where we are introduced to the diamond and to Colonel Herncastle and how he acquires the diamond. The first narrator is Gabriel Betteridge, and he is my favorite narrator, and his first narration lasts 168 pages. I love the way that he narrates, I love his voice, and I love how much he loves Robinson Crusoe. The events related by Gabriel Betteridge, house steward in the service of Julia, Lady Verinder. In the first part of Robinson Crusoe, at page 129, you will find it thus written, "Now I saw, though too late, the folly of beginning a work before we count the cost, and before we judge rightly of our own strength to go through with it. Only yesterday I opened my Robinson Crusoe at that place. Only this morning, May 21st, 1850, came my lady's nephew, Mr. Franklin Blake, and held a short conversation with me." And later he says, "I am not superstitious. I have read a heap of books in my time. I am a scholar in my own way. Though turned 70, I possess an active memory and legs to correspond. You are not to take it, if you please, as the saying of an ignorant man, when I express my opinion that such a book as Robinson Crusoe never was written and never will be written again. I have tried that book for years, generally in combination with a pipe of tobacco, and I have found it my friend in need in all the necessities of this mortal life. When my spirits are bad, Robinson Crusoe. When I want advice, Robinson Crusoe. In past times when my wife plagued me. In present times when I have had a drop too much, Robinson Crusoe. I have worn out 6 stout Robinson Crusoes with hard work in my service. On my lady's last birthday she gave me a 7th. I took a drop too much on the strength of it, and Robinson Crusoe put me right again. Price 4 shillings and 6pence, bound in blue, with a picture into the bargain. Still, this don't look much like starting the story of the diamond, does it? I seem to be wandering off in search of Lord knows what, Lord knows where. We will take a new sheet of paper, if you please, and begin over again with my best respects to you." So the story is begun through the narration of Gabriel Betteridge. Rachel Verinder receives this diamond on her 18th birthday. Everyone suggests that she takes it to the bank and puts it in the safe. She refuses and she leaves it in her room. And of course, in the night, the diamond vanishes. So the rest of the book is all about where is the diamond and who took it. The second narrator is Miss Clack, and she has 64 pages of narration. Contributed by Miss Clack, niece of the late Sir John Verinder. I am indebted to my dear parents, both now in heaven, for having had habits of order and regularity instilled into me at a very young age. In that happy bygone time, I was taught to keep my hair tidy at all hours of the day and night, and to fold up every article of my clothing carefully, in the same order, on the same chair, and in the same place at the foot of the bed, before retiring to rest. An entry of the day's events in my little diary invariably preceded the folding up. The evening hymn, repeated in bed, invariably followed the folding up, and the sweet sleep of childhood invariably followed the evening hymn. In later life, alas, The hymn has been succeeded by sad and bitter meditations, and the sweet sleep has been but ill exchanged for the broken slumbers which haunt the uneasy pillow of care. On the other hand, I have continued to fold my clothes and to keep my little diary. The former habit links me to my happy childhood before Papa was ruined. The latter habit, hitherto mainly useful in helping me to discipline the fallen nature which we all inherit from Adam, has unexpectedly proved important to my humble interests in quite another way. It has enabled poor me to serve the caprice of a wealthy member of our family. I am fortunate enough to be useful, in the worldly sense of the word, to Mr. Franklin Blake. I have been cut off from all news of the prosperous branch of the family for some time past. When we were isolated and poor, we are not infrequently forgotten. I am now living, for economy's sake, in a little town in Brittany, inhabited by a select circle of serious English friends, and possessed by the advantages of a Protestant clergyman and a cheap market. In this retirement, a Patmos amidst the howling ocean of popery that surrounds us. A letter from England has reached me at last. I find my insignificant existence suddenly remembered by Mr. Franklin Blake. My wealthy relative, would that I could add my spiritually wealthy relative, writes without even an attempt at disguising that he wants something of me. The whim has seized him to stir up the deplorable scandal of the Moonstone, and I am to help him by writing the account of what I myself witnessed during my sojourn at Aunt Verander's house in London. Pecuniary remuneration is offered to me, with the want of feeling peculiar to the rich. I am to reopen wounds that time has barely closed. I am to recall the most intensely painful remembrances, and this done, I am to feel myself compensated by a new laceration in the shape of Mr. Blake's check. My nature is weak. It cost me a hard struggle before Christian humility conquered sinful pride, and self-denial accepted the check. Without my diary, I doubt, pray let me express it in the grossest terms, if I could have honestly earned my money. With my diary, the poor laborer who forgives Mr. Blake for insulting her is worthy of her hire. Nothing escaped me at the time when I was staying with dear Aunt Verender. Everything was entered, thanks to my early training, day by day, as it happens, and everything down to the smallest particular shall be told here. My sacred regard for truth is, thank God, far above my respect for persons. It will be easy for Mr. Blake to suppress what may not prove to be sufficiently flattering in these pages to the person chiefly concerned in them. He had purchased my time, but not even his wealth can purchase my conscience too. I love that each different narrator brings such a different voice to the story, and you learn so much about their character through how they narrate their portion of the story. The third narrator is Mr. Bruff, and he has only 22 pages, contributed by Matthew Bruff, solicitor of Gray's Inn Square. My fair friend Miss Clack having laid down the pen, there are 2 reasons for my taking it up next, in my turn. And then he ends his narration with this. And that done, I hand the pen, which I have now no further claim to use, to the writer who follows me next. So this is a solicitor, and so his short contribution is it sounds like a lawyer. He lays out the facts. Now, I can't read very much more of the rest of the narrators because I don't want to give away any of the story. The next narrator is Franklin Blake, and he has 93 pages. And then there is an extract from Ezra Jennings' journal, and that's 41 pages. And then we hear again from Franklin Blake for 16 pages. We get the first narration from Sergeant Cuff for 9 pages. Then we have a letter from Dr. Candy, which is only 2 pages long. And then we end with Gabriel Betteridge, again, only 2 pages, and then there is an epilogue. So, Gabriel Betteridge's final narration begins. I am the person, as you remember no doubt, who led the way in these pages and opened the story. I am also the person who is left behind, as it were, to close the story up. I love the Moonstone. It is a great story, and it was written in 1868, but don't let that throw you off, and don't let the fact that it is a classic inhibit you from picking this up. It is very readable. I find it very easy to read. As far as classics go, I think Wilkie Collins is a great place to start. So if you've never read the first detective story ever written, I strongly encourage you to try The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. And now, before I leave, I'm going to give you the next My March Mystery Madness Mindbender. And it is this long-running series that is set in neither Britain nor America, is known for its gentle pace of storytelling and its wonderfully unique and interesting titles. So, put your answers in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you've read The Moonstone. What did you think of it? Let me know if this video has encouraged you to pick up The Moonstone. I'd love to hear about that as well. I always love to chat down in the comments, so put whatever comes to mind down there, and I'd love to chat with you. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another March Mystery Madness video. Bye!